you for such a thank you for such a warm welcome. And wow, it's always interesting and humbling to hear my introductions because I often like go, "Oh, is that me? Did I really do all of that? 30 years? Wow." So I'm so honored to be here. I really am, and to be a part of this project. I'm going to just share my screen with you now. I hope that that is not the screen that you want to see. We just did this, and now we're somewhere else. What about this? Are we good now? Yes? Okay, super. Let me just double check that this is, even though we tried. No? No boogie? This is the split screen? Yeah, okay. We tried. Third time lucky. Let's have it now. Yay, okay. See, technology. Isn't it good that we're so regulated that we don't let it bother us because we just checked this 5 minutes ago? So, like I said, I'm so excited to be here and honored to be a part of this project. I talk a lot about compassion in the work that I do and when I work with teachers. And I've been a teacher trainer for about 25 years, and I've worked across all sectors really. And when I was back, so I'm originally from the UK, but now I'm based in Hungary. And just a little bit of information about me, so you'll be able to guess from this picture some information about me. So I have three furry companions, and these are them. And I think it's important to mention pets as well, because pets are a great source of regulation as well. And also having three of them does force me outside into nature, which again is a very, very important part of my regulation for sure. Originally from London, now I'm based in Hungary. As I said, I'm very fortunate to live by the Lake Balaton, which is a very, very beautiful place. And when I was back in the UK, I spent 10 years working with refugees and asylum seekers. So obviously they were all navigating very challenging circumstances, and not just them, but also their parents. And I spent many years working with school dropouts. So many of them obviously could not assimilate into the education system. So they often had, not only mental health challenges, but emotional, behavioral challenges, mainly 14 to 19-year-olds, mostly boys I got, but lots of young ladies as well. And then obviously the knock-on effect of that was also helping colleagues to also work with these students, because as we all know, as teachers, we don't always get the training that we need as times shift and change. So like COVID was just like a fantastic example of that, of course. And so it was an absolute honor for me to be able to work with the learners, the parents, and then the colleagues and leaders. So as I kind of moved through my career, I extended my coaching work I set up my own coaching business. So I'm a certified trauma restoration coach. I help not just teachers, but high performers actually, but many people who are facing burnout, or avoiding or navigating burnout, and also helping them to release unprocessed trauma and grief. And part of the modalities I use are energy healing and 9D breath work, which is an immersive breath work modality. I'm also currently the Director of Education for Publications in Central Europe. So when I look at this, I'm like, oh, I do quite a lot of things, but I think we all do as teachers. I was talking to some teachers the other day. We were talking about teachers having multiple jobs and multiple roles, and quite often as teachers in these multiple roles. So whether, like many teachers, I'd be really interested. You could write in the chat for me. So are you teaching in more than one place at the moment? So often we see state school teachers who are also teaching in language schools, also have private students, may have another side hustle, like myself. There are many teachers who, I have a friend who works with essential oils and, yoga instructors, etc. So it'd be really good. I'm just going to have a look in the chat. So, okay, only in state schools, and I think that's it. I would say only in state school. That's more than in a full-time job on its own, working in state school. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to have a look at confidence and where confidence kind of comes from and how we can build confidence. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our own regulation as teachers. And I'm going to give you one activity because of time, obviously, one activity to do that you can do with your colleagues. I would actually invite you to do this with your colleagues. But you can also do it with your students, actually. So you can turn this, you can flip it a little bit. And then I'm going to actually show you how you can combine language learning and breath work. I'm also interested if there are any teachers here who are using breath work with their students already. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about resilience, and I talked about breath work, and there were actually 4 teachers in my session, some of them primary school, who are already using breath activities with their learners. So I'd love this session to be as interactive as possible. So please stop me, ask me questions, comment. I'm keeping an eye on the chat as we go, and I'm really happy to answer questions. And informal caregiver, yeah, then that's a massive role, and that has a massive emotional responsibility as well, to be a caregiver for an aging parent or friend or children as well. Okay, so please just keep your comments coming. So my first question to you is, so would you consider yourself to be a successful teacher? Now, I want you to be really, really honest with yourselves here, okay? And really you can just answer this to yourself now, okay? Whether you consider yourself to be a successful teacher. You can be a yes, a no, I'm not sure, kind of question. And I'm going to add a layer to this now. And depending on your yes or no, what evidence do you have for this? Okay, so before I go into asking you why I'm asking the second question, or why I'm adding this layer, I would like to, are you a successful teacher? Yes or no? You can be a maybe or somewhat. And what is the evidence that you have for this? And this I would invite you into the chat box, please. And okay, I'm not going to mention any names. So sometimes I feel I am, sometimes not really. Okay, so some have found the answers through former students, yes. And it's always former students. So our students don't always tell us how much they appreciate us at the time, but it's not till a lot later that they will say, yes, based on the connections I've built with students. So we're still with students here. Okay, so the evidence seems to be at this point, feedback from students. Okay, students, okay. all very student-centered here, which is lovely. Now, the reason I ask what evidence you have for this is because when we have, we all have a belief system. And whether these are empowering beliefs or limiting beliefs, we all have a belief system. And that belief system is based on evidence. Okay. And quite often we have a belief about something, but we don't look at the evidence. So we don't actually ask this question of like, why? So particularly if we have a limiting belief about something, like, no, I'm not a successful student. Well, whatever a successful teacher, what evidence do you have for that? And the same with students. I'm not a successful language learner. And I love this when students are saying this to me in English. I'm not a successful language learner. It's like, well, you're telling me in English, so you are, yeah, so empathetic connections with students. So this is always a wonderful layer to add into question techniques is what evidence do you have for this? I'll never be able to learn the language. What makes you think that? Where does this come from? Okay, so moving on then, what does success look like? Okay, so we're talking about being successful. How do we measure that? So many of you have talked about feedback from students. Okay, when the day goes well, there's a good atmosphere, productive, serene, I feel successful. Yeah, like that. I'm also someone like people say to me, like, how was your lesson? And I'm like, I had fun, or I enjoyed it, or I felt good. And and that to me also is very, very important. So actually, success is rooted in many, many places. So success is actually rooted in confidence. So this will begin our pathway. Okay. But it's also a firm knowledge basis. So if we have a firm knowledge basis, and this can be anything really, then this is our first step to confidence because we have a strong foundation to stand upon. But success is also related to our desires. So whether we are meeting our desires or not. And of course, at every possible turn, we should be celebrating our wins. And this is something that I'm not sure that we all do enough of. So if I just give you an example of what my success looks like to me, it's very much rooted in knowledge, so linked to my qualifications. So I was always somebody who felt like I wanted to have this very firm knowledge basis because I wanted people to trust me. And I always felt that people would trust me more if I had a strong knowledge base. And also I would trust myself and be more authentic. So that was like kind of my starting journey of how I viewed knowledge as well. Then of course from feedback, which is very important, but feedback from peers as well as from students. And then also by the experiences that we do and we go through along our journey. So if I think about the experiences I've had in the last 30 years in terms of being a teacher, a tutor, a leader, an examiner, teacher trainer, examiner trainer, materials writer, etc. I have quite a lot of experience within my field, and that again gives me quite a lot of confidence in what I'm doing. And then that obviously goes two ways and feeds my measure of success. And I get invited to places like today, so I get lots of wonderful invitations to work with beautiful souls within education, and I do celebrate my wins. I'm really, really good at celebrating my wins. And now when I think about what the fruits of my labor have been, and this again is something that is really, really important for us as teachers to do. I recognize now that my success is not only rooted in knowledge, but also in wisdom. And in this context, when I talk about wisdom, I talk about it in terms of applied knowledge. So knowledge is one thing, but when we apply that knowledge and share it, it becomes wisdom. And this in itself has a level of satisfaction with it. But also for me, it's about, someone else mentioned as well, having that joy and that peace and a very strong sense of purpose. I have a stronger sense of purpose, I think, today than I had, when I first started teaching. But it's also about learning and growing. And as you see, I celebrate my wins along the way. And this is something that I'm going to ask you now. So how often do you celebrate your wins? And how do you celebrate your wins, however small they may be? So can you think of, where are we today? We're Thursday. Okay, so can you think of what has been your greatest win this week? It doesn't even have to be related to education. Maybe you tried a new recipe and it turned out really well. It can be anything. Maybe you tried, I see students' eyes open. Okay. Experience and range of qualifications also work for me, besides being quite eclectic in topics. And through example, I involve myself in discovery. That's perfect. I love that so much. Okay. Yeah, and discovery and curiosity are a massive part of this, of course. There are so many facets to this. So what are some wins that you're celebrating this week? So what's happened that you weren't expecting that turned out really well? So no stress in the mornings. I managed my time well this week. Okay, that is fantastic. That's a massive thing in itself, to start the day in a regulated state and to manage your time and not be rushing from one place to another. Okay, any other wins this week? What else are we celebrating this week? I'm celebrating the simple fact that I was able to hang washing in the garden after a very long and strong winter. Okay, we'll allow you to give you some time to put those in. So where does success come from? Well, I've already mentioned this, that success essentially comes from confidence. So real success comes from the confidence for many, many different things. So the confidence to be able to say yes. The confidence to be able to say yes to the things that align with our desires. So not feeling like we have to say yes to things that we have to do. So it's also the confidence to say no to the things that we don't want to do and the things that are not going to bring us peace and joy and tranquility. And this, I think, is much harder for us to do. Oh, 10-minute reading with students. Okay. Okay, lovely. Okay, these are great wins. So confidence to say yes to the right things, confidence to say no to the things that drain our energy. So the things that drain our energy emotionally and when it comes to time. So someone's already mentioned that this is a win, not rushing around and managing your time. And time is probably one of the biggest stress factors that most educators struggle with, particularly if you're managing education, families, life. And quite often we put our students and our teaching job before everything else because we often have this huge sense of responsibility for the 60 students or however many students that we are going to spend the day with, that we quite often put those other responsibilities, in a secondary place. And we also put the responsibility we have to ourselves in the last place. So me time is very, very important. And actually I have a little gift for you at the end that I will share with Chantel, and then she can share it all with you at the end of the presentation, to do with time and time management. So where does this confidence come from? So essentially, confidence comes from repeated achievement. And this is confidence in ourselves, but also confidence in our learners and our learners' ability. And this is why it's so incredibly important to celebrate wins. And I mean really celebrate them. So if even if that something like waking up not feeling stressed in the morning and managing your time all day, that can be enough if you just go, okay, well done, I've been really working on this. But then it's also do something, really good for yourself or really nice for yourself. Have the cake you want, celebrate by putting on your favorite movie, making your favorite dish. Like, seriously, do something, because actually, whenever we celebrate an achievement, however small that is, we send a signal to our brain that this is a purposeful task. So therefore, whenever we have any kind of limiting belief or worry, like, oh my God, I'm never going to get through this day, I'm never going to get through all of that marking, for example. So all of our stress triggers, actually, our brain will start balancing our responses naturally the more often we celebrate the achievements, because what happens is that the happy hormones and dopamine, etc., levels are going to rise, and these celebrations are going to actually quieten out the fears. And if you actually make a point of celebrating all of these little wins by doing something that brings you joy and pleasure, and likewise doing this with your students, probably within a 2-month window, but certainly within 3 months, within 12-week window, you are going to see that you are automatically geared towards achievement rather than fear. So a lot of the stress is fear, like fear of not getting things done. And this also works with our students. So the more we encourage them, or the more we also celebrate their wins, and I don't mean just through grades and things like that, you see that they are more focused on their ability for achievement, because their brain already expects that they are going to succeed in what they're doing, because they've already celebrated all of these little successes leading up to it. And this is what's going to make their confidence levels shoot through the ceiling. So what is the biggest confidence hurdle for our learners? So I asked you, like, for your learners, what do you consider as the biggest confidence hurdle for your learners at this point? What would you say is sapping their confidence, if we think about what we've just been talking about? And you can unmute yourselves, I think, and tell me as well, or you can write it in the chat. Okay, let's go into the chat now. Previous experiences. Yes, I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because almost every single emotion that we have is linked to a previous experience, and almost every single action that we take is linked to the emotion that we attach to that previous experience. So lack of self-belief is brilliant, because they have a lack of self-belief because they probably haven't been celebrating these wins. So they have a belief system that tells them they can't do it, they won't be able to do it, it's going to be a difficult thing for them to do, and this will be based on previous experiences. So these are all linking together. It's wonderful. Making a mistake in front of others, again, linked to a previous experience. Lack of time, absolutely. Self-expectation. Lack of confidence in themselves, yes. So their self-confidence. Okay, talking in public between their peers and not getting enough approval. Absolutely. So these are all the things. So we're all singing from the same song sheet at this point. And this is such a true phenomenon that these previous experiences, so let's say they failed a test, for example. If they failed a test and somehow they were punished for that in any shape or form, or shamed for that, okay, the next time they see a test, then the first thing they're going to think is, oh my God, I'm going to fail. Oh my God, I'm going to get punished. Oh, this is going to happen. And they go down the fear route very, very quickly. So their brain automatically associates with what the outcome was. So it's actually got nothing to do with them failing the test. It's how they felt when they failed the test, or how they felt as a result of the result of failing the test. However, if in our own feedback we can say, you know what, you did really well. You didn't actually pass it this time. However, what you did do really well was questions 3, 7, and 9. Let's have a look at why you were successful with these questions or these types of tasks. And maybe then we can look at what went wrong here. And then, this is just one example, and it's something that we all know. I'm just giving it as an example. Then their brain automatically goes to future possibility for success rather than future fear of failure. And with this, they're already going to start building their confidence levels. But actually, some of you mentioned time, and one of the biggest confidence hurdles, I still put your learners, I wanted to say our learners, is regulation. And actually, our learners themselves, their nervous systems are not brilliantly regulated at this point. So they're also living in a state of flux. Their minds are in 3 or 4 different places. And they're also battling with their confidence, with their worries about their peers, with their workloads, with their lives, particularly if they're teenagers. Okay, so what we actually see is that if we're working with students who are already dysregulated in terms of their nervous systems, and that has a knock-on effect with us, okay, then the first thing that's going to go is confidence. So let's jump in now into how is it that we can regulate ourselves, because the more regulated we are, the more likely our learners are going to be regulated. So actually, we always have to start from us. So I'm sure you've also seen this, that when you're having a bad day, your learners are, more difficult to manage than normal, okay, because they pick up on our energy the minute we walk in the room. They know exactly what type of lesson they're going to get, and they're going to react to that. So I was thinking about putting you into breakout rooms. I don't know how many of you that are here. Do we, Chantal or Zainab, are we able to jump into breakout rooms just for 3 minutes? Would that be a possibility?
Yes, yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and just for a few of you. Okay, and we're going to shift now from student-centeredness into teacher-centeredness, and we're just thinking about us now. And things I'd like you to think about is, what is your go-to regulation technique? So what do you do when you're really stressed? Okay, so what is your first thing? Maybe it's you hit the freezer and get out a tub of ice cream. Okay, maybe you go out for a walk with your dogs. Okay, so what is your go-to regulation technique? The second thing is your workspace a clutter magnet? So is your workspace a mess, basically? This slide you can take a picture of. This is why I put camera there. So when you go into your breakout rooms, okay, this is what I'd like you to discuss in your groups. So what is one thing in your current rooms, this can be your teaching space, okay, that really spikes your cortisol? So what's something in there that is already stressing you out? Okay. So I had this issue in my office. I was promising myself that I would clear my desk and all my piles. It took me 3 months. I was like, I'll do it at Christmas. I never did it at Christmas. And then when I walked into the office in the beginning of January, I was just like, and so the messy pile, that was mine. I want you to choose one low-cost sensory anchor. Okay, so something that can ground you quickly. So when 9D blow your mind and start playing up, think of one thing that you could use to ground you very quickly. And I'd like you to think of one rule you can set for your students to help you as a teacher feel calm. Okay. Now, again, this was just like a personal one. No one approaches the desk during the first 5 minutes of a task, because that was something that always like rattled me, that I would give a task and they would be on it. And then suddenly there would be, what do I have to do? What do I have? Can I go to the toilet? Can I? Okay. So one thing in your current room that spikes your cortisol, one low-cost sensory anchor to ground you when you're in a state of flux, and one rule that you can set for students. So Chantel, could we put them into breakout rooms, please, just for a couple of minutes? And I'd like you just to discuss this. Apart from listening to apart from listening to our discussion about the fact that you're getting a gift, can we have some feedback on what are your cortisol spikes and your anchors, and do you have any great rules for us to implement to keep yourselves calm in the classroom? And I think let's just unmute and feedback. So if anybody wants to share, then put your hands up and then we can unmute. Any shares? Okay. Utenta, I hope I said your name correctly. Would you like to share? Yeah. Is it Utenta? Is that how I pronounce your name?
Sorry? It's
How do I
Steffi?
pronounce your name?
Stefania, Steffi. That's
Okay,
fine.
Steffi. So
Thank you, Claudia. Well, I managed just to say about what anchor I use, and that is silence. Okay, that is because, and then I couldn't go on, but for me it's definitely silence, because silence speaks to me.
Okay,
And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say.
No, I'm fully with you on that. I think silence is the greatest medicine. So I have solitude Sundays and solitude hours that I build into my week religiously, actually. So any shares about rules? Any rules that you would bring in to help you keep calm? Any new rules? Did anyone discuss those? Not at this point. Okay, so where we are going with this actually is, so quite often, if we want to change a situation, we need to change the environment around us. So we need to create the environment that we want to be in. So one of the most powerful things we can do as teachers is to create a teaching space that we want to teach in. And if we create a teaching space that we want to teach in, then it's more likely that our learners are going to want to learn there as well. Okay. And these can be, count to 5 and take a deep breath. Yes. That's an excellent technique as well. So what are things how can we create classroom spaces that actually feel more relaxing for us? Because let's be honest, the classrooms are very much about the children or the learners and their learning. So there are a number of things. So many classrooms have plants in them. Okay, so actually it's really good to have a plant close to your desk or that you can go to very easily. And when you are in a, find your stress levels rising, and even you can do this with your students. Actually, it's really good to go and just touch the leaves of a plant. It's very, very regulating. Obviously, you need to be careful, depending on the age of your students, that they're not going to wreck the poor plant. Okay. But yeah, it's a really, really powerful regulator, actually, to just go. And the more plants you actually have in a room, the better, for many, many reasons. But actually, to touch the leaves of the plant, or to even touch the pot and the earth around the earth of the plant is also something that's very, very powerful for regulation. The other thing is, of course, listening to music, having background music. I'm a big fan of playing music. I'll often play music in my classes, in my sessions, having some mindful music in the background that helps focus, or classical music, usually something that doesn't have lyrics. Because for me personally, lyrics get in the way of my thinking. So classical music, or mindful, like meditation music, for example, garden, petting the cat, talking, and yes, absolutely, pets are wonderful for this. The other thing is essential oils. So the scents, there are lots of classrooms that do not smell like places that we want to be in, and yet we are in there. We spend a lot of time opening and shutting windows. So actually, essential oils in the classroom is really great. And then, you can find quite easily even ask AI, Google which oils are good for which things, or find somebody who is an essential oils or aromatherapy practitioner who can advise you. Creating playlists is a wonderful thing. The other thing is having a rug, like being able to put your feet on the floor, so sitting stable or standing stable on a rug. Have your own nice rug under your chair, something that is just yours. Okay, so it might even sound like something very insignificant, but it's massive. Also, lighting is important in classrooms as well. And the other thing is bringing in crystals and stones. So actually, I have a big obsidian crystal here. Obsidians are like dark stones, are really, really good for protecting your energy. Okay, so I'll often, if I'm feeling particularly tired, or let's say I'm going into something that perhaps I don't necessarily want to, and I can't not, so having using crystals is great. Rose quartz, it doesn't look like rose quartz in this picture, but I assure you that's what it was when I put it in. So rose quartz is a really good one, because obviously it helps to open the heart chakra, and in terms of opening up to receiving and giving compassion and love. So dark stones for energy protection, and rose quartz. These are two which are absolutely fantastic. Another one would be citrine, which is another crystal that is really great to have, because citrine is the sunshine crystal. So particularly in winter, when it's dark and it's miserable, and we've had we've had like 3 grey months. Actually, citrine brings sunshine into any space, and citrine is also the crystal that cleanses other crystals, and we are crystals. We are made up of crystals. So citrine is also something that is really great to cleanse the energy in a classroom. The other thing is to create a quiet corner. So that could be a mat, a rug, cushions, a quiet space for people to take some time out. Students also really appreciate time out, particularly if you've got neurodivergent learners in the classroom. It's really great for them to just have a space that they can go and sit in and just be quiet, because it's much better that they're sitting there, maybe reading a book in English, than distracting everybody, or just sitting twiddling their thumbs doing nothing. So particularly students with ADHD need regular time out. If you're doing something that's, not mindful, but like mind work, brain work that they have to think about. And then the last thing is a breathe prompt. So one thing I've got, I don't know if anyone else has. So there is an app called the Mindfulness Bell app. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I absolutely love it. It tings every hour. And I don't know why Boggy's laughing. Because I know she likes apps, and maybe it's because of mine. But the Mindfulness Bell app is brilliant because it just reminds you to just stop and pause and take a breath. So that's something I would highly recommend. But also a breathing prompt. And why breath is so important is because when we have what's called controlled hyperventilation, we can increase oxygen levels, and we can play with our CO2 levels and eventually balance them. So usually if we're very stressed, we don't breathe properly. So that's us and our students. And when we don't breathe properly, our brains are not happy, and our brains are not going to function on all cylinders. And if our oxygen levels are too low or our CO2 levels are out of balance as well, then our brain chemicals are also going to be out of balance. So I would like to just kind of end this with 3 breath practices that I will invite you to do with me now. And this is also a great way of teaching shapes. And you can have shape cards that you have, like have a circle, have a triangle, have a square, okay? And start bringing in these breathing prompts or these breath prompts. So circular breathing, or some people wave breathing, diaphragm. You want to breathe very deeply into the belly. So if you put one hand on your belly, and I will show you, I don't know if you can see, you put one hand and you have to breathe deeply into the belly, and you'll see your hand come out. So you're and that's not me pushing it out. So this is what you want. So you want to put your hand on your belly and take a really deep breath in, and you're breathing in a circle. So it's just in, out, in, out. So just let's do that together. So just take a nice deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth with no pause. We're just going to go. And now we're going to do it a little bit quicker than the speed that you usually, so not quickly, so not panting, just slightly quicker than that you normally breathe in. So you're going to do something like so you want to do about 4 of these rounds, and what we're doing here is increasing the level of oxygen in our bodies, and then we switch into what's triangle breathing, where we'll take a deep breath in, straight out, but then we're going to pause at the bottom. So we're not breathing. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in, breathe out, and then not breathe for 1 beat. So we go in, out, pause, in, out, pause. And what we do now, so we've raised our level of oxygen in the system. And now what we're doing is we are activating our parasympathetic system, and we are going into a natural state of relaxation. And the pause at the bottom helps to increase the CO2 levels in the blood. And from there, we move into box breathing, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, where we breathe in for 4 counts, we hold our breath for 4 counts, we breathe out for 4 counts, and we pause for 4 counts. So it's going to go something like this. So in, then we hold 2, 3, 4, breathe out 2, 3, 4, and pause 2, 3, 4, and again in 2, 3, 4, hold your breath 2, 3, 4. Nice slow exhale. 2, 3, 4. And pause. 2, 3, 4. And just do one more round, counting inside your head. And then just come back to your normal rhythm of breathing. If you want to just take one big reset breath, breathe in, breathe out, and then just come back to your normal level of breathing. So how are you feeling at this point? Check in. Okay. So this is a wonderful thing to do with your students, because you're going to make everybody's brains happy, because you're going to go into and this is deep regulation very quickly. So what you could do is leave the circle breathing and just go into triangle breathing. If everyone's super hyper, or you are, you can do this if they're on task and you're sitting at your desk and you've got your 2 feet flat on the floor, put your 2 hands flat on your desk, and you can do this breathing with your eyes open, so you're still watching your students. It's a beautiful regulation. But even with young learners, if you have your shape cards up and you put them up and you can do this breathing with them. There are a lot of studies at the moment being done in the UK with school children and breath work, and they're seeing anxiety and stress levels drop significantly and rapidly, and students making much better choices and attention levels rising as well. And so you can imagine if you also have your nice classroom space. So what I have actually in my office, I have a bunch of roses. So I actually got some nice silk roses. I treated myself. This was one of my win celebrations. And I got my 3 favorite pink colors here, my dusk and baby pink and that. And so I get to see my roses every single day. So this is something as well in your workspace that's really, really important. So the key takeaways really are that we are number one. So exactly like on the plane, put your own oxygen mask on first. When we are regulated, our students are going to be regulated. Creating these classroom spaces that feel good for us to teach in is also something that is going to keep our own stress levels down, because it's going to be a much nicer feeling to go into these spaces. And again, this is something you can do in collaboration with your students. It's a discussion you can have, and you can actually say, you know what, I've got all of your work here. So next to the blackboard, I'm going to put a picture of my choice. Okay. And this is going to be my space. And you can put there anything that you want to put there. That could be your favorite landscape, it could be a photograph that you like or something. But be very clear at telling them that this is my space and I'm having this picture here. You can discuss the picture, whatever. Because I think also it's really good that students see that that we are doing this, that we are practicing self-care as well, and that we are practicing self-care so that we can be more present for them. And then what we're saying in return is, it's like when, I don't know if people are still doing beginning of year classroom contracts. It's the same, it's exactly the same thing. This is what I do to manage my own self-care. Talk to your students about how big your job is, what it actually means, particularly teenagers. It's a great discussion point to have. What do you think a teacher's life is like? How many hours do you think, what do we do? And actually, this is really nice. And this is how I take care of myself. And when I'm taking care of myself, this is how I'm taking care of you as well. So I thank you very much for your attention and for spending this time with me, or for allowing me to spend this time with you. And very happy to share. This is my email address. Please take it. Please use it. Feel free to use it for any more tips and tricks. I'm going to send you a handout, a little gift. It's called the Me Time Timeline. Okay, so the Me Time Timeline. It's just some things for you to perhaps also build in around your own me time, and you can use it as a way of celebrating your wins as well. So as you heard when you were in the breakout room, I will be sharing that with Boogie and Chantal, and they will then share it with you. So I don't know if I know the time's up, but if you have any questions or comments, then I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for this great session. It was full of fruitful ideas and really important takeaways. I'm sure that everyone got something from today's session. And if you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask your question, or leave them in the chat box. We might spend some time, answering your questions if you have any.
Or any comments? Oh, Anna
Yeah,
has a question.
I'm going to make a comment because I really liked what you said about, the teacher putting a picture or, because we're always catering for our students, trying to please them. And you just reminded me of music. Whenever when I do music in the classroom, I used to always be looking to please students. And that fear that, oh, they're not going to like this music. And then I changed to, no, I'm going to share things I like. And perhaps I can, my passion might be contagious. And funnily enough, that worked better. But it was that sharing, and sharing our passions as well for students to see us as real people. So yeah, you just reminded me of the music.
And it's a great point because, our energy is contagious, and let's be honest, you mentioned passion and enthusiasm. I mean, these are two key points of teaching, and the teacher toolkit is, we're passionate about our jobs, we're enthusiastic. I struggle, like there is, certain topics in a course book that, I just don't like teaching, and I don't even know why I don't, but I don't. One of them is sport, and I like sport, so it's got nothing to do with that. And the other one is environment. I see them and my heart sinks, and then I have to find ways of not letting that be. So I have to find ways of making this lesson enjoyable for me. I don't even think about them. They're going to learn something, but they're going to learn a lot more if I can find a way of making this enjoyable for me to teach. Because if not, then with the best will in the world, they could be the greatest football fans. I'm going to make football seem like the least interesting topic in the world, So I think it's a brilliant point you make, Hannah, that, if it's good for us, it'll be good for them. And most of the music they listen to today is just like remixes of what we listened to when we were young anyway.
Exactly. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's music education as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I tell people that. I say, oh, I used to dance to this at my school disco, and they're like, how? It's just come out. I'm like, no, it's a remix. And then I play them the original, and they're like, oh, it's not so cool anymore, or it's even more cool, So no, it's important. And we talk about student-centeredness all the time, but it's time to be more teacher-centered, and and we have to be it's a mindful project and a compassionate project. Be compassionate to ourselves and be mindful about us, because let's be honest, burnout is rife. I mean, it's a pandemic, and it has been for a very long time. And we're always catering to our students, but if we don't cater to ourselves, then how can we take care of our students? So it's yeah,
Oh.
it's a difficult one.
Can I just say something as well, Claudia? Apart from the session was wonderful, I really loved what you said at the very end, because it made me think. I've never raised this reflection with students when you said about what do you think a teacher's life is like. And it's very much what you've just said about putting the teacher back as the center, and this idea of, this is sort of giving that example of this is how I take care of myself, and that allows me to take care of you. It's such a healthy example. And I really, to be honest, I'd never thought of doing that. It's really kind of opened my mind.
Okay. Good. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. That fills me with joy, because I think if we can all do that, if there are 20 people in this room and we have 20 teachers doing that, and we tell one colleague who does that, that's another 40 teachers doing that, and that's another 40 happier classrooms, and another, I can't do maths, 100 happier students, and it goes on. And, we say, don't we, like, you can only heal the world one person at a time, but it just takes one teacher to change 100 students' lives, and people don't even recognize that what I do today will impact potentially 100 people that I'm going to teach today, depending on where you're teaching, how many people you've got in your classroom, so how can that even be in question of how my presence not being important in the classroom, and we're expected to just, jump in and out of our roles all the time. I mean, I know we're going over time, but just really good example. So when I was getting divorced, I just remember this. I was on the phone to my lawyer, and it was a very messy divorce, and I'm crying in the bathroom on the phone to my lawyer. And then I went in and I taught a class, and I literally was like, no one knows, no one sees that, no one asks, colleagues don't know, colleagues don't ask, no one asks us, like, how often do students ever say, so Miss, how are you today? Not like, hi, how are you? How are you? They'll come in and say, God, this is the 5th test we've done this semester. Like, yeah, and that's the 5th group of marking I've had to do, and there's 30 of you and 1 of me, and yeah, I've just marked 50 papers 5 times. Thank you. No, I haven't seen the whole of the New Bridgerton series. Do you want to ask me why? Have you seen Game of Thrones? No, because I'm too busy marking your essays. I mean, let's be okay. But in all seriousness, yeah, there are discussions to have. So I'm happy that, yes, if you put yourself at the center of your classroom, then then my work here is done. That's all I can say for today. So thank you for having me. And I look forward to seeing some of you in Portugal in May. So,
And there are many thank yous and very beautiful comments about the session.
yeah, thank you.
So I think we
appreciate that.
can conclude the session slowly. If I haven't missed anything, there are no questions or no more new comments. Thank you everyone for being with us this evening. And Claudia, thank you one more time for accepting